You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
To pull back the curtain today, we've already recorded 2 segments of this show, and I can tell you it's going to be a good one.
We can actually say that.
I can already tell you it's going to be a good one, too.
We'll hold out hope for the first segment, though.
We make no guarantees about 3 strikes, but we know coming up at least 2 good segments await. And when we record the close, maybe that's going to be great. So it might be 2 good and 1 great segment.
And there we go.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed to our own performance on this here podcast.
So, hey, welcome inside. It's the latest edition of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com. My name is Tyler Mon. His name is Sam Dykstra. Episode number 193, which Sam's note in the subject line of the email today is PS 193 in Brooklyn, Public School 193, is called the Gil Hodges School.
I thought that was a very good fact for this one.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And not only that, but there's a Jackie Robinson school right next to the former site of Ebbets Field in Brooklyn as well. That's a public school, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Is it?
Maybe I made that up.
I used to live in that neighborhood, but I did not know that. I knew of the public school. It might be called the Jackie Robinson School, and I didn't pay attention. It's very possible.
PS 375, it looks like, according to a quick The Google.
Okay.
I know there's at least a mural there on the side of the building that's like right near Ebbets Field Towers.
Oh yeah,
So,
no, that's actually
it is. Yes, I didn't make it up. Whew.
No, you're true. And literally, that was about a 10-minute walk from where I used to live.
Sam.
I'm sorry, a childless person did not know much about the public school.
Get some better understanding of the public school system around your neighborhood while not having kids.
Yes, I know.
Do your job.
Well, it's only a 10-minute drive away from me now, I guess. So
okay.
Maybe this weekend I'll have to take a drive-by just to say I've seen it.
There you go. So welcome into this week's episode. Coming up in a little bit, we are going to catch up with the 12th ranked prospect in the Atlanta Braves organization. Pitcher Kyle Muller will join us from Seattle, where he was taking part in some work at Driveline Baseball. Very cool stuff. We'll get an insight into what the Driveline world is like, and it was really fun getting a chance to talk with Kyle. And you can get in touch with the show, podcast at MILB.com, wherever you found us. Thanks for tuning in. We're on Apple Podcasts and Google Play and everywhere else. And give us a rating and a review and a subscription, and tell us how much you like our Kyle Muller interviews and our nonsensical segues into talking about things like New York City public school names. You only get this kind of content here.
That much we can guarantee.
So with that, let's get into 3 strikes for this week's episode of the show. Major League Baseball announced its Hall of Fame class this week, which included Edgar Martinez, designated hitter, formerly the Seattle Mariners, Mike Mussina, starting pitcher, formerly the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Yankees, who said, by the way, he will not be representing either in the Hall of Fame, which I find interesting. Mariano Rivera.
He hasn't announced that yet, has he?
Yeah, I thought I saw the other day that there was a headline.
Roy Halladay will not be representing either.
I thought I saw the same about Mussina. Maybe I dreamed this.
Mussina said yesterday at the press conference that he hasn't chosen yet.
Oh.
He's still up in the air about which one he's going to wear. He's open to both possibilities, and he's going to talk to the Hall of Fame about it. But everybody was hoping he would have an announcement yesterday, and he jokingly just said no, he doesn't have an announcement.
Where did I see that? Maybe I made it up.
No,
I knew that was the case with Roy Halladay, the late Roy Halladay, who that actually kind of surprises me about Halladay, because he spent the vast majority of his career in Toronto, and granted had some unbelievable moments as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies, threw a no-hitter in the playoffs, yada yada. But I thought that he would go in as a Blue Jay. Mariano Rivera, I don't know who he's going to go in with. Who could possibly guess?
I don't know. Maybe an Arizona Diamondback.
Could be. Oh. Too soon, say Yankee fans.
Yes,
from
I'm
18
sure.
years ago.
Yeah.
So let's get started. Those Hall of Famers named this week, and yesterday Sam got a chance to hang out at the press conference in which they discussed their minor league days, and obviously that was one topic among many with the introductory press conference for the three living elected Hall of Famers, and that's always a cool thing every year when you get a chance to do that. What was this year like?
Yeah, this one was really cool. The reason they discussed their minor league careers during the press conference itself, for anybody who got to watch on MLB Network, was because a question was asked by our friend Kelsey Hennigan. She was there as well. She wrote up a story on the site about this. I'm actually going to go a little deeper for Toolshed this week on Mike Mussina. But what really sticks out to me about this class, and this came across in their answers, is just the different routes these guys had. I mean, every year we go through this with the Hall of Fame class, and we think about it in terms of there's got to be only one route. If you're talented enough to get into the Hall of Fame, which is like 1% of all Major League Baseball players of all time, you would think your talent would shine through in the minor leagues. You're more likely to be a top prospect. Top prospects are more likely to be Hall of Famers, vice versa. What this class points out is that's not exactly true at all. Edgar Martinez was, kind of a failed third baseman. He hit basically everywhere. He at one point looked like maybe even a quad A player, and he talked about that a little bit yesterday. He was at AAA Calgary for a couple of years, going up and down between Seattle and Calgary, hitting very well at Calgary, but as a third baseman, never really showing the good defense to make that happen. Luckily, the Mariners end up deciding to move him third base 1 year full time. They eventually make him the DH, and now he's in the conversation for best DH of all time. But was never really a top 100 prospect, or at least had the look of it. Mariano Rivera, the story is pretty well told at this point, but signed out of Panama at a relatively late age for Latin American prospects. We talk now about guys signing when they were 16. Mariano Rivera signed much later than that. Started out his career as a starting pitcher, had a major elbow injury that required surgery, although I don't think it was Tommy John that he got when he was at the lower levels. Eventually makes it to the majors as a starter, seems like a failed starter, becomes a reliever, becomes the greatest closer of all time, and there's no real debate on that one, becomes the first unanimous Hall of Famer of all time. So the idea that you just need to be a top prospect in order to have a long and prosperous career kind of gets destroyed by those two guys. That being said, Mike Mussina was somebody who we think of as being a top prospect. I think at one point he was ranked number 19 going into the 1991 season by Baseball America, which was really the only prospect ranking or the only major prospect ranking in the game at that point. Mussina was a first-round pick, made it all the way to AAA in his first year, and I'm talking about in his draft year. Ended up winning a Governor's Cup with Rochester that first year, went back to Rochester 91, ended the season in Baltimore, never really saw the minor leagues again. So the idea of, there's only one way to Cooperstown, that's very much not true, proven out here. And also, not only that, Roy Halladay was a prospect at one point, but even he got sent all the way down to Class A Advanced Dunedin at one point in his career after a couple major league seasons. Yeah. And Kelsey writes about this. She talked to his wife who was there about what that time was like in Roy's life, getting sent down to work on his delivery, and they also helped him work out some mental issues maybe about pitching in the major leagues. A couple of years later, he's a Cy Young winner. So that's what I really like about this class in general, is it's obviously a very diverse class. You've got two guys who came up through the draft, one from Puerto Rico, one from Panama. And you get just a breadth of different stories. Mariano Rivera got very personal yesterday in sharing a story about, when he first came up and he was at Class A Greensboro, he would cry himself to sleep because he knew on the baseball diamond, everybody speaks baseball. Everybody generally knows how to communicate with each other. I'm going to be positioned over here. 1 means fastball, 2 means curveball, whatever. You can usually understand that. But in the clubhouse, if you're not speaking English, especially when he was coming up through the ranks, late 80s, early 90s, it can be really tough on these young players. That still exists now. I mean, there's a big movement now in the game to have Spanish-speaking coaches on every minor league roster. But for some of these guys who are coming in much younger than Mo was when he came in, it's really difficult. So, to remember that and see what's still possible, and to see what these guys put up with at the lower levels was really cool and really striking. And it was nice to hear them be so forthcoming yesterday about what those first couple of years were like. Mike Mussina shared a story about the first time he went on a minor league road trip, his luggage got ran over. Even as a first round pick, he still rode the bus, still did everything else like every other minor leaguer. So it's important to keep that kind of stuff in perspective. And I always enjoy going to this every year, and this year was no different.
There's some good stuff. Kelsey's story up on the site right now has some really great anecdotes in it as well. I have absolutely no idea where I got that Mike Mussina had. I swear I got a push notification that said this. It's more than likely that I read something incorrectly because I'm, what's the word? Dumb. But I apologize, Mike Mussina. It's also kind of funny if you just search Twitter now, Mike Mussina, Orioles, Yankees. There is a flame war going on as to see who Mike Mussina is going to go in as. Just have a blank cap. Don't choose a side. I think it's funnier to make these people yell at each other for all of eternity now. Nobody ever yells over the Hall of Fame, though, as we've learned.
Yeah, if Greg Maddux can go in with a blank cap, I think we all think of him as an Atlanta Brave.
Yeah.
Mike Mussina.
That is pretty crazy to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, you started your career with the Cubs. He went back to the Cubs. Spent a lot of good years there. I get that. Mike Mussina, he even talked about this yesterday. The Orioles are the team that drafted him not once but twice. That's where he started his career. They put in a lot of work with him to become an eventual Hall of Famer, and some of that will come through in the piece in which I talked to his Rochester pitching coach. And then you signed with the Yankees, who gave you a lot of money and got you as close to a World Series title as you ever were going to get. I get that. So it's not an easy decision, but hey, if you're making a decision about your Hall of Fame cap, that means a lot went right for you. So that's a pretty envious position anyway.
There was one tweet that I saw in which a fan said, why does Mike Mussina have to decide if he wants to represent both teams? Let him represent both teams, which popped into my head the idea of making, you see those like Franken jerseys every once in a while where it's like a jersey cut in half and sewn with another jersey cut in half. Just make a plaque that has a cap with half of that terrible Orioles bird logo and a half in NY on the other side. That wouldn't be weird at all. No, that would be very aesthetically pleasing. Super normal.
Just make two plaques and have a button. If you're a Baltimore fan, you can press the button and it flips over to the Baltimore side.
It flips back and forth.
Yeah.
That actually would be very interesting. Every day you could have a vote tabulation of who came by to choose Mike Mussina's cap logo. We're putting way too much thought into this. Strike two this week. The prospect projection series continues from Tool Shed, written by one Samuel C. Dykstra, and this week it's a National League Central. Take us through it. Who's going to star from the NL Central, Sam?
Yeah, looking at the NL Central from a major league standpoint this year, I think it's going to surprise people, at least the way things look right now, how open the NL Central is going to be. We're coming off a year in which the Brewers were good and the Cubs are good and the Cardinals were good. Pirates and Reds a little bit less so, but the Reds have been probably the most aggressive team this offseason. I mean, some of the trades they've made are guys on 1-year deals. I'm looking at Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp and Alex Wood. So it's kind of exciting to see the Reds pour some resources into this and make some big deals. And when we're looking at that in terms of prospect projections, that works really well with the idea that Nick Senzel, the top prospect in the Red system, and a top 10 overall prospect himself, is basically major league ready. I mean, he's coming off a year in which it was kind of disappointing. We all thought he would be in the majors last year, but dealt with some injuries, and not just injuries, but kind of health concerns. He had some bouts with vertigo at times that held him out. He also tore a tendon in his right index finger, and that required surgery. They wanted to put him in the Arizona Fall League. He ended up getting another procedure in October that removed bone spurs from his left elbow. So it just seemed like one thing after another. In terms of this being worrisome for his long-term health, it doesn't seem to be a big worry, especially the vertigo. That seems like something that could kind of get you scared. But the Reds don't seem worried about it. He didn't seem worried about it. So even after all of that, what he was able to do when he was on the field last year was obviously very good. As I mentioned, top 10 overall prospect. He's actually at number 6 overall. He hit 310 with a 378 OBP, a 509 slugging percentage. Everybody expects him to be a plus hitter. That kind of translates very well into these projections. Steamer 600 says if Senzel were to get 600 plate appearances next year, he would hit 275 with a 338 OBP and a 444 slugging percentage. What does that mean on a major league level? Well, they expect him to be an above average major league hitter right away. That's with no extra time at AAA Louisville. He would be expected to be a 109 WRC plus. To kind of put that into context a little bit, that would be 7th highest among rookie eligible players next year if they were all to get 600 plate appearances. And it's actually difficult to be above average as a rookie eligible hitter right away in the major leagues. I only counted 15 rookie eligible players who had a WRC plus of 100 or above. Most of the names Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Eloy Jimenez, and Nate Lowe and Peter Alonso are the top 4 in that category. Number 5 is Kristen Stewart, who actually has major league time on his resume already. So it's really difficult for even a projection system to think that a player is going to be an above average hitter right away. Senzel plugs himself really well into that. They also expect him to hit 17 homers and add 14 stolen bases. So a good mix of power and speed for him there. That would work out to a 2.7 WAR, which would obviously help out the Reds quite a bit there. I think that's like about 4th in terms of all Reds players in terms of WAR projection. Behind guys like Joey Votto and Eugenio Suarez. The big question for me for Senzel going into this year, and I still don't think the Reds fully know how this is going to work out either, is where are they going to put him defensively? He got a lot of time at second base last year. They drafted him as a third baseman. Anytime you talk to anybody from the Reds system and you ask him about what he can do defensively, they always like to bring up, he's played shortstop in the past. Is he going to be a shortstop at the major league level? I wouldn't quite put that on him, but he does have a good arm. He's got, like I said, some good speed, so he's got the range to make it happen. The thing I would like to see from him is get some time in center field. The Reds non-tendered Billy Hamilton this offseason, and at the time seemed like a bit of a head scratcher. Hamilton's one of the premier defensive center fielders in the game. Obviously, one of the fastest, if not the fastest player in Major League Baseball right now. Can't hit for much at all, so that kind of hurts his value and made non-tendering him a possibility. But, he's somebody who brings value to the baseball field every day. Letting him go and not having a ready-made replacement right now, it's maybe Scott Schebler, who could be their starting opening day center fielder, which he's good, but not something on which a division winner is built, I would say. So if Senzel can go into this spring and get some time in center field or any of the outfield spots and maybe win one of those or show that he's ready enough, after a couple weeks at Louisville, once service time concerns are kind of by the wayside, that'll be really interesting. He said before he underwent the elbow surgery in the fall that he was going to go to the AFL and working on the outfield was going to be an explicit instruction for him out there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that continue this spring. He's probably not going to be third base just because the Reds like Suarez so much and for good reason. But maybe second base is a possibility. Maybe they give him second base and center field. What's clear is that Nick Senzel is ready to hit the major leagues from an offensive point of view. He's incredibly rare when it comes to rookies. He stood out by far amongst any other NL Central prospect I wrote about here. Keston Hiura may have been somebody else who could have led this column as somebody. The Brewers have an opening at second base. Hiura should open up in the upper minors, AA, if not AAA, this year. It's very clear that the Brewers are going for it, coming off their playoff run last year. They want him to be their second baseman at some point in 2019. The projections aren't there for him just yet, and I think that's because he ended at AA last year. They only expect him to be an 86 WRC plus hitter with a 1.2 WAR. Not good enough to say like he should be in the major leagues right now, but that's a foundation on which Hiura can build for sure. But when it comes to prospects from the NL Central in 2019, Senzel is clear and away the biggest to watch, and I'll be keeping a very close eye on what they do with him defensively this year in the Cactus League.
So there you go, Central fans. It's prospect projections series always gets me so excited because it means we're finally getting there. Even though like some of these guys we won't see for any plate appearances in the majors, it's still like, what could that guy do with 600 plate appearances?
Right. Well, that's my favorite thing about it too. Is I've had this discussion with editors before of like, oh, do we need to throw in this guy? It's very clear that he's not going to be worth anything in the major leagues this year. And it's just because I want to be ahead of the curve in terms of, how many times do we get tweets? Call him up. Taylor Trammell does. Is the Futures Game MVP last year, and he spent the entire year at Class A Advanced Daytona. Good player, very exciting tool package. Was only at High A, and after he wins Futures Game MVP, performs in Major League Park, everybody wants to say, "Hey, he should be in the majors right now." Let's just put him into the steamer matrix and just show that right now the projections would have him be below replacement level. Here's something we can actually point to. So even if guys aren't, the Nick Senzels of the world, or even if your organization doesn't look like there's many major league get ready guys right now. At least you can look at it and say, like, okay, maybe they should be making free agent moves. Maybe they should be making trades to allow these guys to develop a little bit more. So that does matter for something, even if it's not the top of the list we're always talking about. Those guys at the bottom list can give you an idea of where your system is as a whole as well.
Strike three this week, Sam. Yeah, that's something I wrote.
Yeah, I was going to say strike three. I feel like I'm supposed to be the one to throw this back to you. And if I was anything of a co-host, I would have done that naturally. That's a strike two. But you're a much better driver of this train than I am. Tyler, you wrote a story this week that was basically like ready-made for you because you've seen these guys in this capacity for sure. And I don't think anybody could have written this story as well as you did from the perspective that you did. But you wrote a story about how Team USA 2017 is starting to really come into their own in pro ball, coming off last year's draft. What stood out to you in this story and reporting this story, and what are some of your memories even from that Team USA team in 2017?
Well, yeah, it's pretty amazing. We're talking about the U18 team. USA Baseball refers to it as 18U, but internationally it's the U18 squads, which competed in the U18 Baseball World Cup in Thunder Bay, Ontario in 2017. It was a 20-player roster, and of those 20 players, 19 were draft eligible. There was an infielder named Carter Young who was the only high school junior on that team. He'll be draft eligible coming up in 2019. Of those 19, 17 were drafted. 10 went in the first round. So 20 players on the roster, half of them were first-round picks. And I have to issue not an apology, but an acknowledgement to Arizona Diamondbacks prospect Alec Thomas, who responded to the MILB.com tweet and said, how can you just forget about me and Reynel Delgado? Well, Alec Thomas was a second-round pick. Reynel Delgado was a sixth-round pick in the Cleveland system. So sorry, there's only so many stars we can talk about on this team, and you guys had to be cut out. I apologize. But it's that team was just ridiculous, and they combined through 9 tournament games of the World Cup and 4 exhibition games, 2 of which were against a powerhouse JUCO program in Iowa Western. That team went undefeated. They allowed 5 runs in the entirety of the U18 Baseball World Cup, which is a 9-game tournament. 5 runs, 3 of them were earned. The staff was ridiculous on the pitching side. The offense, it's kind of funny when you talk to really everybody that I talked to for this story about that team and about the offense, including somebody like Nolan Gorman, who was a first-round pick of the St. Louis Cardinals and is now the second-ranked prospect in that organization. All they can talk about is the pitching staff and the defense. The one guy who talked about the offense was the pitcher that I interviewed, and that's Ryan Weathers, who was a first-round pick in the San Diego Padres organization and is now a top 100 pick or a top 100 prospect according to MLB Pipeline. And he said, like, yeah, once I realized like these guys are going to score a bunch of runs, that takes a lot of pressure off of you as a pitcher. But really, it was the pitching staff and the defense that kind of carried that team. And it just the international baseball landscape is so fascinating, especially from the USA Baseball side, because all of these guys not eligible to be drafted until they get to the end of their high school careers. So you can really form one of the elitist collections of talent in baseball at that level and kind of that level alone, because these guys are all on that verge of either being professional players or being big-time Division I players, and you can jam them all onto a 20-man roster. A couple of these guys made the comment, if we would have formed two teams, if we would have formed a team out of the guys who didn't make the final 20-man roster, that team might have been able to win a world championship at a World Cup as well. And it was just a really fascinating group of guys who, you just remember the way, and yeah, I broadcasted those games for the World Baseball Softball Confederation, and it's just incredible to see a collection of talent like that, all in one place, all playing on a stage that's so different from even the travel ball circuit or the showcase circuit or, perfect game or the All-American games, all those types of things. Those are interesting, but when you put things on an international map and you've got the USA Baseball logo across the front of your jersey and you're competing against other countries, it takes on an entirely different gravity. And as many teams as have gone through, the United States has now won 4 straight U18 Baseball World Cups. They've won 3 straight at the U12 level. They just won their first U15 this past summer. They won the World Baseball Classic, obviously, in 2017. What USA Baseball has done, the dominant role that it has been on over the last few years in international baseball, the U18 level is still like above and beyond anything that they've put together. And to have 10 first-rounders out of a 20-team roster is just insane. And it was fun to get a chance to talk to those guys. Yeah,
and we've had Anthony Siegler on this podcast.
We have.
From the draft floor. And you're very right. Like this story is kind of just the start. Or that World Cup team was just the start of what's going to be very, promising careers for a lot of these guys. And would not be surprised if your story in, however many years is used as like a 30 for 30 based on just how much talent was on one field at one time. You talk about 10 first rounders. I mean, that's an entire lineup, including a DH and starting pitcher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's insane that could happen all on one team. So
you just
really cool story. And we'll be following these guys, obviously, for years to come, whether it's minors or minors or majors or minors.
It was really cool, and if you're a team who landed one of these dudes, unless you're the New York Mets, who already gave up the highest level drafted one of them all, in outfielder Jerry Kelenic, so be excited for the Seattle Mariners. But be really pumped about these guys because the experience that they have, the talent level that they bring, the maturity, the professionalism, that was one thing Ryan Weathers talked about. And Ryan Weathers is a guy who's a son of a former big leaguer. His father, David Weathers, won World Series titles and pitched in the big leagues for a while, and Ryan said that was the thing that he appreciated most about USA Baseball was they kind of teach you how to be a professional in terms of the decisions you make away from the field, how you carry yourself as a pro. And I thought that was really interesting stuff as well. There was a quote that I didn't get to put in the story. I ended up with a way too long story, and a huge thanks to Josh Jackson, as always, for helping me cut it down to something manageable. But there was a quote from Ryan Weathers in which he talked about he went out and I think threw 2 shutout innings against Japan in a big matchup. Japan at that time was the number 1 ranked international program according to the rankings in 2017. USA Baseball took it over after 2017. But Ryan Weathers said, I got back to the hotel after that and just sat down and thought, I can't believe I just did that. Like I'm a kid from a little town, Loretto, Tennessee, that nobody's ever heard of, and I just went out and shoved against the number 1 team in the world, and that's pretty amazing. And for so many of these guys, you come together from across the country, you're together for a month or a few weeks past that, and get to have this experience and go out and win a world championship together. It's pretty amazing stuff. And I think sometimes we all get so jaded by the highest level of professional athletics, and it's the Olympics, and sure, this team won a gold medal, but look at them, they're all professionals, they're going to go back to making millions of dollars and they don't care. That doesn't exist at the lower the youth levels. You can still have sort of that miracle on ice feel, not necessarily with a team like this because they were kind of a dream team, but you have that feel of like these guys are up there on a podium crying and singing their national anthem. Their families are taking videos from the stands, they're running around the field with flags draped across their backs. Like, it's pretty cool stuff, and I had a lot of fun putting that story together, and Big thanks to all those guys for talking with me, Ryan Weathers and Nolan Gorman from the player side. Also, Matt Blood, who was the national team director for that team and is now the director of player development with the Texas Rangers organization. So if you're a Rangers fan, you've added a good one there as well. And we're going to add a foul ball to this week's episode of the show before the show. Cincinnati Reds involved in a trade for Sonny Gray. They are in the process of acquiring a lot of people with the last name Gray, it appears like, over this offseason. So they bring in Sonny Gray as the latest Gray addition. Shed Long out the other way in the trade.
Yeah, so this was something that was rumored to be happening over last weekend, basically. The Yankees, is well known, were looking to trade Sonny Gray in the last year of his deal. Rumors start percolating that it was the Cincinnati Reds that wanted to pick him up. Then it was that they also wanted to sign him to an extension. It kind of made sense because their pitching coach used to work with Sonny Gray at Vanderbilt. We've talked tons of times on this program about the pipeline of pitching from Vanderbilt into the major leagues. So there's a kind of a natural fit there. But we didn't know what was going the other way. It took a couple days to become official, and then we kind of found out why. And it wasn't just Sonny Gray going to the Reds and a player going to the Yankees. It ended up being a three-way deal, more or less. I say more or less because it basically is a or a three-team deal, but the Yankees announced it as two separate trades for some reason, which kind of befuddles me. But anyway, what ended up happening was Sonny Gray goes to the Cincinnati Reds. Shed Long actually goes to the Seattle Mariners. And going from the Mariners to the Yankees was Josh Stowers. Also going to the Reds was Reaver Sanmartin. Looking at this from kind of a prospect point of view, Shed Long goes to the Mariners, and the reason why the Yankees, I don't think, wanted to keep him was because of a 40-man roster crunch. Shed Long is on the 40-man roster. They would have needed to clear space for him. Didn't want to quite do that, so what can they do and flip him for a player who's not on the 40-man. Josh Stowers is that. He was a second-round pick last year out of Louisville. Long is probably the better prospect right now. He's always had the chance to be an above-average hitter. Showed that a little bit at Double-A Pensacola last year. People really think he will pop even more at some point. The biggest question mark with him is his defense. He was drafted as a catcher. He's been used as a second baseman. Everybody I know who's seen him says he puts in a lot of work at second base trying to become a decent fielder at that position, which can be very tough. As much as we talk about shortstop being a tough position, second base is still up the middle. You do need some athleticism to play there. So he's continually working at that, maybe not quite there yet. What that's going to mean for his future, we'll have to see. But he goes to a Mariners organization that, he slots in right now as the number 8 prospect. Their number 1, number 2, number 3 guys were all acquired this offseason. They're trying to rebuild. They can plug Shed Long right in there. Obviously, they might someday have an opening at second base that they didn't have before after this year's Robinson Cano trade. I know D. Gordon might get a little bit more time there now, but who knows? Shed Long could plug in there at some point down the line as well. Josh Stowers going to the Yankees. Biggest thing for him is his speed tool. It could be above average. I've seen some places say it's average and doesn't work great necessarily in center field, but he stole 20 bases last year in 58 games at Class A short season Everett. Stole a ton more at Louisville during his time there as well. So he's got speed to burn on the base pass at the very least. There are some believers in his power. Hasn't quite shown up in the college or minor league ranks just yet, but he does have the athleticism at 6'1", 200 pounds to maybe grow into some power and add that to his game as well. So Yankees take on a little bit more of a project. Even if maybe someday he will be the better prospect than Shed Long. At least he's not on the 40-man. Shed Long becomes part of the rebuild in Seattle. Might work his way to Seattle at some point in 2019. We'll have to keep an eye out on that. But interesting trade from the minor league side beyond just Sonny Gray has a new home and could be a reclamation project for Cincinnati.
Josiah Gray was the other one, by the way, in case you're wondering about all the Gray jokes.
Yes.
And I think I said acquiring. I should say transactions with, because
I was going to say Josiah Gray. Yeah, he went
Josiah Gray to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Right. They replace one Gray with another one, and Sonny John Gray be on the lookout, perhaps. We'll see. So that'll do it for 3 strikes and an episode and a foul ball in this episode of the show before the show. Next, we're headed to the Atlanta Braves system and a long way from Atlanta, but we're going to catch up with Kyle Muller, the 12th ranked prospect in that organization, about his breakout 2018 and what's to come ahead this season. Kyle Muller from Seattle next. Off-season continues, although we're getting close to pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training all over the place. And one guy who's going to have a long cross-country flight to get down to Atlanta Braves spring training in the Grapefruit League is Kyle Muller, the 12th ranked prospect in the Atlanta Braves organization who joins the show from Seattle. And we'll talk about why that is the case here in a little bit. Kyle, welcome, man. How's the off-season been?
It's been great. Well, first of all, thanks, guys, for having me. But, yeah, the off-season's been awesome. It was a little bit short because of the fall league, but it turned out we ended up winning that, so it was definitely worth it. But, ready to get back at it with everybody.
That's definitely not a bad way to wrap up your fall league. You go down there and you're there for 6 weeks, and if you get to leave with some hardware, that's a pretty cool cap to the whole experience, I would imagine.
Oh, it was awesome, especially because the way we won was Braxton Davidson hit a walk-off home run in the bottom of the 10th inning, I think, after we hadn't scored until the 9th inning. So it was pretty dramatic, but it was cool to see another teammate kind of put the team on his back like that.
And then he got hurt in the celebration, correct? Have you talked to him? How's he doing?
He's good. He's down there in Orlando right now. He's getting some rehab in, but I think he'll be ready to go.
Okay, good. That's good to know. That's the last possible thing you want. It's dramatic ending to the AFL, and by the way, a dude broke a bone while celebrating his walk-off. But
yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, no. So we had to make sure we got him off the field safe, and then we kept celebrating. But it was really fun.
Well, Kyle, let's talk about first. Let's go back to last season. Taken with a 44th overall pick in 2016 in the second round out of high school. You spend your debut season in the GCL. 2017, you go to the Appy League. Last year, you're all over the map in a good way in the Braves organization. Class A Rome, Class A Advanced Florida, Double A Mississippi, and then the Fall League, obviously, to finish things off. When you look back at last season, you get 25 games combined through those 3 levels, 11-3 record, a 3.03 ERA. Go off to the Fall League. You've got this long, just frenetic sprint through 2018. Now, having had a few months to reflect on it, how do you kind of define the 2018 season, what that meant for you as a ball player?
I mean, it's awesome, especially after kind of the year I had in 2017. It didn't meet up to a lot of people's standards, and especially mine. But so I went back kind of the off-season remaps and stuff, and then I knew I had to come into spring training and kind of show out a little bit, and I thought I did a pretty good job of that. And then obviously started strong in Rome, which was nice. And then you can't control when they move you or if they move you, so you just got to kind of do your thing. And fortunately, they were pleased enough to bump me up 2 levels, which was, it was awesome. And, kind of looking back, it's a little bit surreal because based off of how the year before went, you didn't know kind of what their plans were. But, them moving me up twice definitely had that, or showed me that they still had that confidence in me. And it was really encouraging. And then sending me to the Fall League as well. That was just icing on top of the cake.
The offseason going into last year, like you said, you come off. I noticed one thing that was interesting in the MLB pipeline write-up about you was in 2017, the Braves kind of felt like the way your mechanics had changed a little bit might have been a reason behind a little dip in velocity and wanted to get those things corrected. And going into 2018, obviously, the way things went for you, it's due a lot to the work you put in to get back on track. The offseason coming out of 2017 and going into last year, what was your biggest emphasis there?
So for me, I had always worked out a lot, and it was always, see how much weight you could lift. And that's still a part of the program, but I never really focused on any sort of explosiveness, speed training. So that was something for me. I was strong, but I couldn't apply force fast. And then, so that was the training aspect. The mechanics part, for me, I was so domed up because I was trying to think about, okay, my foot needs to be here, my hand needs to be here. Thinking about how it looked when I was throwing rather than getting into athletic positions and just trying to be as explosive as possible. And so that's kind of one of the things that, I've done through Driveline and those types of workouts is to, rather than thinking about, how everything's supposed to look, learn the kinetic chain of transferring energy from my feet all the way out through my hand through ball release. And that's something that definitely helped me a bunch.
And at what point last year did it feel like that had locked in? Was it being promoted after 6 starts at Rome? Was it even in the spring? I mean, when did it feel like last year was going to be not only just a better year for you, but even a special year, just looking at what a pitching prospect should be doing in the minor leagues?
I'd say for me, it was in spring training. I mean, going out and showing well and putting up some good numbers, having my good off-speed stuff. And that was definitely something encouraging because I got to show them a side of me that they've never seen before, and really I hadn't seen before. That was something new to me. So pretty much the whole year it was just kind of learning how to control it and how to further improve on it.
And when you talk about having to show the Braves where you were and what you were able to do in the off season, how blunt were they after 2017 with you about their expectations and what they wanted from you going forward? I mean, how serious were those conversations with them?
We didn't really have any sort of conversation. It was because I had made some good steps kind of towards the end of the year. Obviously, the numbers don't really show that, but mechanically and just mentally, I think that was probably the biggest thing is the mental toll that 2017 had. Just kind of, having all my draft buddies go up to Rome and then me being stuck and extended to work on some stuff. So it was more of a mental grind, but kind of getting through that season, they were like, look, go home, take some time off, and then just come back ready to go. And so, I kind of just essentially put that pressure on myself to show them that the investment they paid for me in 2016 was worth it, because obviously you don't want to let anybody down. And it's not the season that I had hoped or expected. So, I definitely wanted to go back and prove something.
And when you look at what this Braves organization is, obviously it's all you ever known since you've gotten drafted, but whether it's guys you talk to at Driveline or what you've seen other places in the pros, it seems like the Braves are willing to get aggressive with you guys when you do prove yourselves at levels. I mean, Kyle Wright pitched at 3 levels last year. Bryce Wilson did the same thing. All those guys who made the major leagues last year, they got pushed there because it felt like the organization was more aggressive. Does it feel that way being there, or what does it feel like when you do get moved as quickly as you did last year?
I mean, honestly, I feel like that's the way it should be. I know there's a lot of politics involved and payrolls and stuff like that. But if there's somebody that's proven themselves at a certain level and, is doing what you want them to do, I feel like you should give them that opportunity. And that's something I'm very thankful for, that I'm in an organization that does that and kind of sees it that way. Because, I mean, there's obviously our minor league system and our big league system is very loaded with pitchers and, all sorts of different prospect talent, which is great because, you have a bunch of competition every day. But, I mean, it's definitely awesome when, they think you've earned your shot and they give it to you.
Kyle, to go from, Class A to Double A in one season is going to be a big jump for anybody, but I feel like for pitchers especially, the adjustments that you have to make at each level, when you're a hitter, you get to get in there and you get to see it every day, and I don't want to say that the adjustments are by any means easier, that you can make them any faster, but the exposure being out there day in and day out would help a little bit, I would think. But being a starter, what were the biggest things you noticed when you went from Rome to Florida and Florida to Mississippi? What adjustments do you have to make climbing those levels, not necessarily in short order? I mean, you had 14 starts in that middle stop at Florida, but what were the biggest differences between those levels?
I would say just the hitters' approaches. You can get away with a lot more at the lower levels, I feel like, and that was something that they had kind of emphasized. Is as you get older, you've got more experienced guys that have, it's not their first time in Double A, and there's some guys that had maybe had a little bit of show time that are still in Double A, stuff like that, and so you're facing top-notch guys who know what they're trying to do at the plate. And I think that just comes with some experience. And so you definitely have to, one, be, more precise with your pitches, your pitch selection, and where you're trying to throw it. But for the most part, it seems like a huge jump, but it's something that once you get there, like for me, it was like throwing like change-ups and curveballs behind in the count. And it's something that you just don't have to do at the lower levels because you can just keep throwing fastballs and then hopefully somebody puts it in play, and gets out that way. But I feel like once you kind of get to the point where you have to start doing that, it becomes a lot easier, and then you kind of unlock a little bit of potential that you didn't know you had.
Here's a question that's not related to the on-field baseball element of it, but you go from the GCL Braves in 2016, Danville Braves in 2017, Rome Braves in 2018, Mississippi Braves in 2018. And in between those, you got to be a Fire Frog for 14 starts. How cool was that?
It was nice. I mean, it's awesome. It's great having your big league team own all the affiliates because, you're getting top-notch equipment and all that stuff because they're the ones supplying it and paying for it. But, the Fire Frogs, it was definitely an experience to say the least. But, the Florida State League's kind of tough, especially in those middle months of the summer. It gets kind of hot and humid. But, I had a lot of good friends with me, so we kind of grinded through that together. It was really fun.
There you go. Well, one reason we wanted to bring you on this week, and you touched a little bit on it before, was your experience this offseason with Driveline. I mean, I think that's all over social media lately. You've posted about it on Instagram. Trevor Bauer has posted about it on Twitter, kind of the group you guys have there in Seattle working with Driveline. First off, I feel like a lot of our listeners are going to be uninitiated with what Driveline is. So kind of explain that to folks, what the philosophies behind that workout regime are. And, what are you kind of picking up this offseason, during that work with Forrest Whitley, Trevor Bauer, Nate Pearson, I know is somebody you've worked out with. Those are all big velocity guys. What has that been like this offseason?
It's been great. So I actually met Trevor for the first time when we got out here. So we're just out here for the week. We got here Sunday and we'll train until Saturday and then we'll head back home. But for me, it's great, but the philosophies behind it are, using overweighted and underweighted implements to essentially train your body to move more efficiently with the heavier weights. Because obviously to move something that's overweighted, you have to be as efficient as possible. And then by using underweights, you train your body to move faster. And so that's kind of the gist of it. But they have so much technology out here, it's ridiculous. They put like sensors on you and you throw a couple pitches and they'll look at the biomechanics of the way your body moves and they can explain it to where somebody who has no background in it can understand it, learning like, hey, this is how you can take stress off your arm, this is how you can apply more force more efficiently and stuff like that. And so that's that, along with like their slow motion cameras and Rapsodo technology that they use. You can use try to make your pitches the most efficient as possible. And so just the technology they have out here is ridiculous. And so that's kind of the thing that drew all of us out here, which is really cool.
Yeah, and pivoting off of that, I saw a video of you the other day. I think it was 98 miles an hour or something like that was shared when you were throwing to live batters. What's one benefit you feel like you've personally got out of it? What's one adjustment you've made this offseason or something you're going to carry with you to Orlando this spring that just in this week span you've already picked up?
So it was really, I kind of went over the biomechanics part of it today, and it was, I move well, like my mechanics are decent, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement and getting some more like scap loads, some more counter rotation, hip shoulder separation, stuff like that. And so little drills that you can do through throwing the weighted balls, that'll clean that up rather than, saying, hey, put your arm right here and do this. You kind of do a drill and stay athletic. And that was the biggest thing for me was, like I kind of said earlier in 2017, I was so just, domed up with, how my body's supposed to move and trying to put stuff in certain places rather than doing an athletic movement and just having it correct itself. And so that for me has been the biggest thing is still building on trying to have an explosive athletic delivery and try and make it as efficient as possible.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on this off air a little bit, but how do you get involved in this program? I think it is kind of catching up, and I think most casual fans maybe have at least heard of Driveline now. But with so many pitchers getting involved, so many big-time pitchers, especially you young guys who are either on the cusp of the majors or are going to be there very soon, or already there in Trevor Bauer's case. How do you get involved in this program, and how wide have you seen it spread since you got involved?
To get involved, all you got to do is call and schedule an assessment, buy your flight, and then have a place to stay when you're out here. It's not very.
That's it. I'm going to do
exclusive.
it now.
Yeah,
I'm going out there.
You should sign up. It's not. It seems like this exclusive thing, but it's the real thing is it's out in Seattle. So, I mean, for a lot of people, that's kind of out of the way. But, if you take the time and invest in yourself to go out here and get some of the best training you can possibly get, I mean, it's definitely worth it. And I think that's why it kind of seems like such a small group, is because only a certain amount of people are willing to make that, that whole cross-country travel to go train. So I think that's part of it. And then the reason, so many people start doing it and the reason it's expanding so much is just because their knowledge on kind of the way the body moves and the pitching delivery, as well as, pitch shaping and pitch sequencing and doing like all the stuff with the Rapsodo and slow motion cameras and pitch design is just, light years ahead of most other places, so like to get that type of information from pretty much the people who it seems like started it, is pretty invaluable, because I mean that's the way the game's going now.
It would be pretty cool to be the out of shape 33-year-old former college club ball player who goes to Driveline and writes up the experience. When I start throwing 78, you guys are going to take notice. Don't you worry.
Hey, yeah, no, they take anybody, so just come sign up, get out here.
Yeah.
Kyle, to be part of this generation now of pitchers where you've got so many resources like this at your disposal. There's Driveline, there's Rob Friedman, the pitching ninja on Twitter and Instagram, has released the Flat Ground app, which is kind of taking the baseball world by storm. It's sort of an app that can develop ball players, trying to make sure that players with talent don't fall through the cracks. There are so many things out there now, for pitchers especially, that can develop you into a guy that maybe 15 years ago you wouldn't have been as a pitcher. How exciting is that to be in this era, and especially for you to be in an organization where you're surrounded by so much pitching talent? That's got to be really cool. I mean, if you were drafted in even 2006 compared to 2016, it's an entirely different landscape than what it is now.
100%. And I mean, I love it. I think it's incredible, kind of the way the game's going and, the workouts and the throwing programs and all that stuff. But the best part about, like, the stuff you said on Twitter and YouTube and all that, it's free. Like, you don't have to pay anything, So, like, you can go, and if you just dedicate some time and do some research and some reading and stuff, like, you can learn so much more than you would have, back in the day, because they just didn't have articles published and people weren't sharing their information. It was all by word of mouth. But now you can just Google something, and that one thing that you read could be what clicks for you.
That is pretty cool stuff. So tell me about the remainder of this offseason then. You'll leave there this week. You really don't have a ton of time before you guys report for pitchers and catchers and all your spring work. What do the next couple weeks look like to get everything ready to go down to Florida?
So we'll get back probably Sunday. Then I think I'll have 2.5 weeks. And I think I fly out the 14th for minicamp. So, those 2.5 weeks, just start throwing some bullpens and trying to get all my off-speed pitches dialed in, and then, get ready to show up and show out in spring training.
That's pretty awesome, Kyle. Well, enjoy the rest of the time in Seattle. Kyle Muller is the 12th ranked prospect in the Atlanta Braves organization. You can find him on Twitter at KyleMuller19. And thanks for giving us some time, man. Have fun the rest of the way with Driveline, and we'll see you out there in the spring.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
One of my favorite leads from a Benjamin Hill story ever came up just today. We're recording this on January 24th. The lead is fantastic, and Ben joins us, and I'm going to read it to you in a second. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Tyler, and hello, Sam Dykstra, sitting to my left.
Okay, here it is. Quote, turtles can be found on land and at sea in Daytona Beach, Florida. They're now in the air. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Daytona Tortugas have a plane now. Not for them, like they're not going to be flying around in it. But there's an airline, Silver Airways, which now has a Saab 340 turboprop plane. Two things about that. One, did not know Saab was still in existence. Two, had no idea Saab made planes. But Tortuga 1 now provides daily commercial flights between Daytona Beach and Fort Lauderdale. This is a first. We've had no minor league team branded planes before. You sometimes see, there's college teams, professional sports teams obviously have their own charters that have logos on them sometimes and all that kind of stuff. But a minor league baseball team now on a plane. This is cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I chose to write a story about it. There's obviously a lot of different aspects of minor league baseball that fall under my larger purview. I don't really write about partnerships or sponsorships very often. I let the teams take care of that and kind of tout their synergy and the different relationships they have with brands. It's not something I really get into much. But this one, struck me because I was like, I'm always looking for firsts. When I write a story, often it's because, wow, I've never seen a team do this before. And so to have a commercial jet branded with a minor league team logo, I thought was pretty cool. So it's Silver Airways, a very small carrier, or not very small, but a pretty small carrier, mostly Florida based in Florida, and most of their routes are in-state Florida routes. So pretty small flights distance-wise, and then in aircraft as well. And so Daytona Beach International Airport, DBA, if you're keeping score at home, or is it DBA? Oh, man, I said if you're keeping score at home, and I messed up the airport abbreviation. Anyway, Daytona Beach International Airport. JetBlue pulled out.
DAB.
DAB. Thank you. DAB.
And Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood is FLL.
FLL, yes. So the airline, Silver Airways, is based at FLL, and they were moving into DAB, Daytona Beach, for the first time after JetBlue pulled out. And, when they were in discussions with the airport itself about potentially being an airline that starts servicing Daytona Beach, the executives there said to the airport, we want to be on board with the Daytona Tortugas. And, that right there is pretty unique. If you're interested, if you've worked in a front office before, most of the time you're hustling to create these relationships. And a lot of times you're under the radar and you're dealing with people who are like, wait, who are you? What? Are you a professional team? Right. All this. That's not always the case, but you hear stories about that a lot. So to have a company be like, oh, if we're coming in here, we need the minor league team. But I found it interesting in quotes from both Ryan Keur, whose name I always mispronounce, Keur, K-E-U-R. I've talked to him so many times. Daytona Tortugas president, and Steve Rossum, the CEO of Silver Airways. They were both saying similar things, like, we are small. We are a small business that kind of has to do things creatively to make a buzz. So I think they just saw this immediate kinship between the airline and the type of airline they were and the type of team that the Tortugas were. So then, if you're creative and trying to create a buzz on a small budget, it eventually led to the idea of having a wrapped airplane, meaning an airplane with the decals of the Tortugas. So when you have a wrapped plane, it kind of looks like it's painted, but it's essentially just a lot of vinyl, big decals all over the plane. Silver Airways did it completely in-house. But now every day between Daytona and Fort Lauderdale and back, there's a commercial jet, Tortuga One, flying, and sometimes it goes to Key West in the Bahamas as well. So I just thought that was a really cool idea, and then just thought, like, this is the way we see in minor league baseball, a copycat industry. I mean, in a good way. We'll probably start to see other teams saying, hey, like, we never thought about that before. And just in writing the story, I just learned about a world I hadn't really explored before. Airports and airlines and the sort of, negotiations that go on there, airlines going in different airports, the relationship of teams to airports as a partner in and of itself before the relationship with the airline even begins, and et cetera, et cetera. So Tortuga One is in the skies, and be curious to see where this develops in the future, if we're going to be seeing, team brands flying all over America. We'll see. Obviously, it's a sort of partnership that's going to generally happen at a smaller level, but these are commercial planes, and every day making 4 different flights from Daytona, or from Daytona Beach to Fort Lauderdale. I guess that's 2, and then Fort Lauderdale back to Daytona. Sometimes more than that, with going to Key West and back as well from Fort Lauderdale. But anyway, thought it was a good story. Interesting partnership, and there you have it.
Yeah. One thing that was really cool, just real quick to jump in, Steve Rossum, the CEO of Silver Airways, gave this quote, I think association with a minor league baseball team makes sense. A lot of pilots come to Silver Airways, work 4 or 5 years, and then go to United or Delta. It's almost like we're AA, part of a natural career progression, which is so cool.
Yeah, like it's kind of fun. It made me want to learn more about the airline industry, because you just don't think about what a huge world it is.
Yeah, you don't really think about it in that context.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a wrapped plane, vinyl decals.
Well, I mean, that kind of transitions into what I was going to ask, which was, you kind of mentioned this, the airline reached out to the team first, which is not normally how that works. But in your discussions with the CEO, why did they do that? I mean, did they just see Daytona Tortugas as such a fixture of the Daytona Beach area that they thought, what's an obvious way we can do this? Or like, why Daytona Beach? Why not like Daytona Speedway or something like that? Put that on there.
Well, I think one, being a smaller airline, the Speedway is such a exponentially larger entity that they probably didn't think they had the requisite clout to have a partnership like that where they have Speedway, and then that probably ties into NASCAR, and I just didn't think they were big enough. But the airline had never been in Daytona Beach before, so I think they figured in terms of Daytona Beach proper, a recognizable brand, and it's become a lot more recognizable since the team switched from the Cubs name to the Tortugas and has a great logo by Studio Simon. They just thought like this is something that we can immediately brand ourselves with to tie us into Daytona Beach specifically because we'd never been in Daytona before. And also as a way to kick off a new route. There had previously been no Daytona Beach to Fort Lauderdale flights. So kind of saying like this is something totally new. One, us in this airport at all, and two, this specific route we're doing every day to Fort Lauderdale. There had actually never been a southbound flight from, or maybe not never, but it had been years and years and years since there had been a southbound flight from Daytona, at least domestically.
And what I think they should do next is they should have a flight from Daytona to Chattanooga, literally just like flying players. I know it's super local. I get it. That would just be super cool from our point of view as baseball writers.
I thought you were saying it would be like the Tortuga to Chattanooga. That would be like I just thought it was a rhyme.
Oh, the Tortuga to Chattanooga. Okay.
It sounds good, yeah. But yeah, you could think of that.
Or they could go to Dayton. I mean, either one. Like transporting players all over the place, like that.
And
how about a series of private jet routes throughout minor league baseball that involve only going to the cities in one specific team's farm system?
Sure
somebody get our good ideas board out.
Yeah.
And then the Chattanooga Lookouts can sponsor a train. And it's the Chattanooga Choo Choo.
Oh, okay.
All of my jokes are from 1934. Ben, the one of the stories that you got up on the site, it was actually on the blog, that got a lot of traction and conversation, and it was a really cool story. You put up a piece on bensbiz.mlblogs.com of, as we know, Ben has now been to every single active minor league ballpark in existence right now. He's also been to a bunch of ballparks that are no longer active, and there are now 16 of those. And Ben put a blog post up on the site about the parks that are no longer hosting minor league baseball and what they're doing now, and if they're still around, all that type of stuff. This is pretty cool how much this got people kind of interested in this story.
Yeah, as you do a job like this, you learn what gets people talking. As you guys know, logos and team names always gets people talking. But defunct stadiums in general, and especially when you're ranking them, that gets people talking. But people really like the topic, I've found, of defunct ballparks, minor league ballparks that may be still in use but are no longer hosting minor league teams. So this post I put up last week, a lot of it is taking material from a previous post I wrote and tweaking it a little bit, but then adding the 3 stadiums that became defunct in after the 2018 season. R.I.P. Kendrick Legion Field in Helena, Cashman Field, home of Las Vegas, the Las Vegas 51s. There's going to be a new ballpark in Las Vegas. In terms of Helena, that team relocated to Colorado Springs. They're going to be the Vibe. And then the weirdest of all the defunct minor league stadiums, Jim Perry Stadium, home of the Buies Creek Astros. Never forget. Let's fast forward. Or let's pretend it's 20 years from now, and there's just going to be this kind of like, it'll just hit all our brains every once in a while. Like, there was once a minor league team in Buies Creek, playing at a college stadium. So Jim Perry Stadium was never intended to be a minor league stadium, but as there were, it was one of the teams that contracted from the California League to the Carolina League after the 2016 season. There was a plan for a team in Fayetteville, which is now a Fayetteville ballpark hosting the Woodpeckers, is going to open in 2019. But the Astros, who own that team, needed a placeholder for 2 years while this ballpark in Fayetteville was being built. So never forget the Buies Creek Astros, who played at Jim Perry Stadium on the campus of Campbell University. Yeah, the Fighting Camels.
Fighting Camels.
One of my favorite, mascot fantastic. University pairings.
Yeah, and I got to visit in 2017, which was the first year of the Buies Creek Astros and also the penultimate year. And there's a big camel statue on campus, and it was just like such a surreal
Did you
That's
learn what the
real-
reason is behind camels as the mascot?
I can only guess because it's Campbell University, and that sounds a lot like camel.
Let's
You know?
see. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna do some show production as we.
Because if you say Campbell, you're almost saying
Camel. That's
Yeah.
true.
Well,
That is
the
true.
first thing you think of is soup, and they're not going to incorporate soup.
No, you can't be you can't brand your institution of higher learning like that.
After soup.
Okay. Before 1930, this is according to Wikipedia, so you know it's true. Before 1934, Campbell's athletic teams were known as the Hornets, which makes a little more sense. The origin of the name Fighting Camels, popularly believed to be derived from a statement by early school patron Zachary Taylor Kivett, who approached school founder James Archibald Campbell after a fire had destroyed 3 then-existing school buildings in 1900 and said, quote, "Your name's Campbell, then get a hump on you. We've got work to do." Campbell thought Kivett said, "You're a camel, then get a hump on you." That's the dumbest story.
Well, let's
I have
assume
ever
that back then, "get a hump on you" was just
What? That's
something
that-
you said in a totally different.
And then that guy also said, "Why don't they get a sponsored train in Chattanooga and call it the Choo Choo?"
I was going to say, you're the one talking
Made
about
the same exact
1934
joke.
jokes
Yeah.
here, Mon. Well, you can't
Anyway.
judge.
Yeah, this is right up your alley there. Man. This is, so there you go. So those are the
Could be a
three.
way cooler story. It was-
Yeah.
So,
Anyway.
out of these 16, then, out of the 3 you just mentioned and the other 13 you present in the story, which one do you miss the most? I guess is the question on that.
That's a good
or
question.
do you wish was still in existence?
That's a good question. Most of these I just visited once, maybe twice, so there's not a lot that I have like deep-rooted memories myself. I often, even though I'm going professionally as a fan, I just think of places I would have loved to go to, and I'm kind of, a weirdo who likes the smaller, beat-up places in a lot of ways. I romanticize them. So, should there still be baseball at Sam Lynn Ballpark in Bakersfield? From a practical perspective, no. But but I miss Sam Lynn Ballpark. I wish I could have gone there more times. There was a really quirky energy there I liked. Same thing with Helena, who just finished this season. Wooden grandstand, mountains in the backdrop, a treacherous press box on the roof where you went up these narrow, creaking staircases and passageways. You can see why it's no longer hosting minor league baseball, but it still makes me sad from a fan perspective to not have those sort of experiences. And, I asked Sam this the other day, and putting all this all together, I realized, okay, well, these are the 16 defunct ballparks I've never been to, but I realized I've never included 2 ballparks as part of my total, which maybe and how to classify them, because I saw games in 2 ballparks at ballparks that were defunct at the time, but they were hosting special regular season real minor league games. Rickwood Field, the Rickwood Classic every year. They host one Birmingham Barons game at that classic ballpark, and also Holman Stadium on the complex as part of the Dodgertown complex, where they now have done a annual Jackie Robinson game on April 15th, and I saw a game there a couple years ago. And I don't know how to classify that or how to add it to my totals. So if you have any, should it go on this defunct ballpark list that I visited? Should I include it as part of my larger total? I need help. This is very complicated.
Well, one thing we should also add, too, before we move on to another subject is we're talking about them as defunct in terms of no longer being involved in minor league baseball. But as you note in some of these, they're still standing. These places you can still go see games if you really want to.
And I even changed the in my newer write-ups, I changed it from still standing to still in use, because almost all these ballparks are still in use in some way, shape, or form. Not all of them, but they're just not hosting minor league baseball. You see summer collegiate quite a lot of the time, coming into old ballparks that minor league baseball is no longer using. You see an indie team sometimes, like in the case of Kendrick Legion Field, it's just going to be used by the local American Legion in Helena.
Which I like that idea a lot, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like giving it back to the community and having these kids being able to play in a minor league park.
Yeah, but although I read up on it on local media, there was a overflow town hall or city hall meeting about what to do with the ballpark because a summer collegiate team wanted to come in the Expedition League, I believe, And they voted, nah, let's just keep it for at least 2 years, just American Legion. So, and that's something that these municipalities or whoever owns the ballpark have to deal with when the team leaves. Is this still a viable entity that they can get positive use for our town when the minor league team's no longer there? And I think in often cases it is, especially if you're talking summer collegiate, local high school, American Legion. You hate to see these places disappear. And if there is room in the budget to keep it up, maybe not at a professional grade level. You no longer have to worry about waivers and all the things that come in with hosting a minor league team. But hopefully you can still have baseball there. There's still great places to visit.
What among the ballparks that are listed here, which one, this might be kind of a difficult question to answer, but which one do you think has the most interesting future ahead of it? My favorite line through the whole thing is "Nothing can kill Sam Lynn Ballpark," about the former home of the Bakersfield Blaze. But for example, in Nashville, Greer Stadium was supposed to be redeveloped into new plans. The land was supposed to be used for something else. Those were stopped by a lawsuit, I believe. There's some crazy pictures of that ballpark now. It's all overgrown and post-apocalyptic looking. There are just so many different ways that so many of these things can go. High desert. I know it's hosting an independent league park or an independent league team right now, but like, what do you do with a ballpark there that never really seemed like it took off the way people expected it to? What do you think is the weirdest or the most unique or the most interesting future for one of these?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the two you mentioned in California, the defunct High Desert and Bakersfield, are interesting because they're very different ballparks, but they are both very run down. But you don't want to just demolish it and have nothing. It's better to have something than nothing. Then you have interesting cases like Rosenblatt in Omaha, which was largely torn down, and the Omaha Zoo came in. But there's a infield at the zoo exhibit that incorporates some of the field and some of the seats. So it is interesting. I'm not sure of one right now that is just completely like, what are we going to do? You mentioned Greer. That's one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if that one's totally torn down at some point along the way. But I think a lot of these are just going to develop through the years, and we don't really know where it's going to go.
So that story is up on the blog, bensbiz.mlblogs.com, and we have one more item. The Altoona Curve, AA affiliate of the Pittsburgh Pirates, announced a promotion that for select home games this season they will be known as the Yinzers. Yinzer is a term that refers to people Yins, I guess, is a term that refers to people from Pittsburgh. Instead of saying like y'all, people from Pittsburgh say Yins, like Yins going to the store. Because they're weird. And the Curve announced uniforms and a logo and all that kind of stuff. This seems like it could very much be the next thing that teams do. We've seen the food trend take off. There's this hyper locality now, I think, that goes along with minor league promotions. Does it seem like something that other teams are going to start picking off?
Yeah, Sam and I were talking about that. Yeah, Yins is, as you said, Tyler, initially a way to say y'all in Pittsburgh. And, I went to the University of Pittsburgh and became familiar with the use of the word yins and at, yins going to the store and at, that kind of thing.
What's that?
Even here. And
yeah, I see it. I still don't know what that means.
It's
and
just
that.
Yeah, it's like and that. It's just sort of like
and that.
Yeah.
And what all?
Yeah, what all? Like you doing like this and that? Like you.
Yeah.
You gonna go to a bar later and drinking that? Like you might drink, you might do other things, but like I don't know. It's just one of those regional things. And so from the use of the word yins, then Pittsburghers, or at least a certain subset of Pittsburghers, started being called Yinzers, and has been really embraced by Yinzers themselves to self-identify as a Yinzer, and hence the Altoona Curve deciding to call themselves the Yinzers for 7 weekend home games this season. And Sam and I were talking about in the office and thinking, we've talked so much about how hyper local a lot of these theme nights get, and how many of them are based on food.
Right.
But how many are something like Yinzer, like what people call themselves in a region or what people are called? The ones I was kind of coming up with would be, maybe just terms that are seen as too insulting to actually, for people to self-identify. So I think that's a good question. If you're listening, what are some areas of the country that would be similar to, the Yinzers in Altoona, their Pirates affiliate? But what areas of the country could you have something like this? Because I feel like it is definitely getting other teams thinking, but I can't think of one where the self-identification is key, because the fans have to respond positively and not be like, this is an outrage, we find this term insulting, or this is what people from out of town call us, or whatever the case may be. So I can't come up with any like real good ones. But
I feel like Pittsburgh is great too, because the vast majority of people, I think, outside of Pittsburgh don't know that. So it's like your own unique thing. I don't think people just hear Yins and think like, oh yeah, that's what people in Pittsburgh do. Like that's a very, very localized colloquialism. So that's like the perfect way to do it. So maybe there's other ones that I wasn't aware of that before I moved to Pennsylvania. I'd never heard of Yins. So I think there's a chance that maybe there's like a lot of these that we've never.
Yeah, I was going to ask you,
aware of.
Tyler, for like Colorado, because I don't know of any Coloradoism other than just Coors.
Hashtag Coors.
Hashtag Coors.
I don't know. Actually, I don't think like. I don't know. Maybe we just do one like very
transplants
grammatically. Yeah, that would probably be the most fitting. But maybe we just do one that's just like very blandishly correct, like you guys or you people, but not in a pejorative way. So anyway, if you know of these from other regions around the country, let us know. Get in touch with the show, and you can tweet at Ben. He is at Ben's Biz, and the blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com. And what else we got going on? What else you got coming up?
We've covered what the basics. I've got a blog post right now. I mean, you guys have talked about the Hall of Fame, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to put together a blog post about on the defunct tip, to kind of like go into a little more detail on the nature of some of the defunct teams that these guys have played for.
Oh, cool.
Not their personal experiences. I mean, mentioning a little, but more so just like, Edgar Martinez started his career with the Bellingham Mariners. Who are they? And then he got promoted to the Wausau Timbers. Who are they? And the Calgary Cannons. He
spent a lot of time with the Calgary Cannons, too.
Yeah, and those kind of teams. So I'm working on that right now, and got a few ideas for the next feature, but nothing set in stone on that. And some archival stuff, trying to get like all my road trips together, not just for this coming season, which I really haven't started, but trying to make a master list of my actual itineraries every year, so I can really look back and know where I was and when. So hopefully you can have some fun with that too.
Benjamin Hill, you can find on Twitter at bensbiz, and the blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com, and the story is up on the site right now about Tortuga 1. So if you are in the mood for a flight from Daytona to Fort Lauderdale, now you too can hop on a plane with a Daytona Tortuga on the side. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Sam, sitting to my left still. We have not changed places.
One of these days we're going to do that.
Yeah.
The stuff that we discuss with Ben when we get done recording interviews is so much more entertaining. We had a lengthy discussion about how we all view our own mortality, basically.
Yeah.
After this one,
it does get dark. It really does. I think
it really does. Like pretty instantly.
Yeah, we teased that before.
To be fair, I was the one who brought it up.
Yes, but it went down this whole big rabbit hole about Family Feud got involved at one point.
Yeah.
European Vacation got involved at one point. There's a deep dive into a lot of things that we're gonna have to save for some other podcasts, not this one.
And Sam said, if you contribute to our Patreon account, we'll release the unedited audio. How about of our off-air discussions with Benjamin Hill?
If you want to hear us get very dark about our own personal lives, there it is.
It happens a lot. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. We are less than a month from pitchers and catchers reporting. We're starting to get things nailed down for spring training. It looks like I'm going to be in Arizona the third week in March, so the 17th-ish to the 22nd-ish. So if you're going to be down in the Cactus League in that stretch of time, hit me up. I'm on Twitter at Tyler Mon. Sam is going to be in Florida forever.
Yeah.
So hit Sam up, too.
Yeah, I will be in Mexico before that, and then I am flying to
excuse me.
Yeah, to Florida. I'm going to Mexico for a wedding, not my own. I should get that out front.
For a wedding.
For a wedding, not my wedding. And then flying straight to Florida. So I'll be there around the same time you will be in Arizona, maybe a little bit before Tyler. But that's around the time of year when minor leaguers are showing up to camp. We talk about pitchers and catchers reporting in a month, but the minor leaguers don't get there for a little bit afterwards. So, right when we get there is when a lot of minor leaguers will be there as well.
One thing, you mentioned Mexico, and that made me think we should drop this in as a mention. The championship series is currently going on in the Mexican Pacific Winter League. Jalisco and Obregon are tied 1-1 after a pair of games. Game 3 comes up today. But a huge congratulations is in order to Estrellas Orientales, who last night captured their first Dominican Winter League championship since 1968 by knocking off Toros del Este. They play a best-of-9 championship series down there, and they took 5 of 6 to win their first title in 51 years behind Cincinnati Reds number 14 prospect Jose Siri, who batted nearly 600 for the championship series. Fernando Tatis Jr. Was fantastic throughout the playoffs. He was actually pretty quiet in the championship series, but last night a shutout victory 4-0. So congratulations to the Eastern Stars snapping a 51-year title drought. Pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. And the fact that prospects were involved only makes it better from our aspect.
Pretty good stuff. So that'll do it for this week's episode of The Show Before the Show. Get in touch with this podcast at MILB.com. Sam's on Twitter at Sam Dykstra MILB. I am on Twitter at Tyler Mon. And for Sam, I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you next week.